What's going on? What's going on, everybody? It is the only sports podcast. That's right, the only sports podcast. I'm Will. That's Casino over there. How we doing today, Casino?
Pretty good. Just dealing with a limp mic over here. Yeah. It's
Yeah,
just things happen.
I mean, sounds like married life, if you ask me. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
No, I'm doing pretty good though. Doing pretty good. We were going to do in studio today, but now I'm a little feeling under the weather. My kids are sick. This is great.
Uh, all this avoidance to not get your family sick, and then they get sick by an outside source that isn't me. So that's great. That's
My
great.
daughter wanted me to tell you that she got her gummies, her vitamins that now are going to make her not sick. So
Hey,
good.
that's good.
Good job,
Yeah.
Mac.
Yeah, and Casino's just giving his daughter THC gummies, hoping she can just vibe her way out of this. but, um, but
That's good.
on today's episode, Casino, we have to talk about college football, do our power rankings that we ran out of time for Tuesday on. But we start today with the NFL playoffs, the divisional round. Let's dive into it without further ado.
Adieu.
And let's talk about the first game, which is the appetizer, because this is the only game I'm really not interested in out of the three. And that is the Texans traveling to
How can
the
you not be
Kansas City
interested in this?
Chiefs. Because I think the Chiefs it's going to be every Chiefs game we've ever seen, where there's going to be multiple times during it where you're going to trick yourself into thinking that the Texans can win, and then they will lose by 10 points. This is what this game's going to be. I'm obviously picking the Chiefs. I know you're insane in picking the Texans. Make the
I'm
case.
gonna. There's really no case, I'll be honest. I just don't want to see the Chiefs. I'm just gonna pick against them the entire way through, and hopefully one of them sticks. Um, the little that I would have for this though is it is a revenge game for the Texans. They did lose to the Chiefs early on, right before Christmas, not by much, honestly, 27-19. So, and this was in Kansas City also. So you can't really throw that out of the way. Um, so I do see that there is a possibility here for Houston. It's going to be a long shot, but Stroud played well. I mean, he threw a couple picks. You take those away, and they're right in this game. They would be right in that game. So I honestly think that things are going to be okay for Houston to be somewhat close, but you're right. It might end up where KC most likely will, where KC will squeak this on out right at the end. But I'm going to go Houston. I think they have something to prove that, they're not slumps, and KC just might feel too comfortable.
uh yeah, but see, the thing is, the
So
Texans,
I know that the Chiefs are going to win, but I'm picking the Texans.
but what you said there is the Texans aren't slumps. The Texans are slumps. They've been
Just because
slumps
they've
all
had
season.
slumps.
They have been on a giant slump since the end of last year, never recovered this entire season. Every podcast we did
You said to try to make a case for him, so I was trying to make a case for him. Okay.
after each Texans either win or loss, we would come on here and be like, what's wrong with the Texans? Texans look weird. And guess what? Last week, they still in that game lost the fumble twice. Stroud threw an interception, only one touchdown. It's not like Stroud had a great game. The only reason they won last week is because they won the turnover battle, and they didn't even win it by that much. Herbert threw 4 interceptions. The Houston Texans turned the ball over 3 times. So they won the turnover battle by 1 turnover. And again, what is it? Herbert, unlike Patrick Mahomes, Herbert, we've never seen have a good playoff game. That one he threw 4 interceptions in. Patrick Mahomes, we've only seen have good playoff games, really. If I saw this insane stat that I'm going to put up on the screen right now, Casino, this is, as much as we hate Mahomes, this is absolutely insane. because when you look at this stat right here, if the Chiefs, and for those listening, it's by Trey Wingo, shout out Trey Wingo. It said, should the Chiefs win Saturday against the Texans, it would be their 16th playoff win with Patrick Mahomes under center. To put it another way, in Joe Montana's 16-year career, he led his team to 16 playoff wins, second most all time. Mahomes is only in his seventh season.
Okay, that's fair. That's fine. Guess what? I don't think Joe Montana's the best quarterback to ever play. So
Well, he's
whoop-de-doo, what he caught
yeah.
it. He caught him. Cool. Guess what? There's talk about Mahomes being better than Brady at the end of his career. So why are we trying to compare him to Joe Montana? No, he's going to surpass Joe Montana. He already has. So I mean,
Well, Joe Montana won 4. So
doesn't
Patrick
matter.
Mahomes has won 3. If he wins one more, he's tied. So he needs 5, and then he needs 7 to catch Brady. And that's a good question. Do you think Mahomes gets 8 Super Bowls in
No,
his career?
no, because the reason being is Adam or Adam and oh my gosh, their coach. Why am I totally blanking?
Andy Reid.
Thank you. Andy Reid. I don't know what kind of word I was trying to say there. Andy Reid, he's only got maybe 2, 3 seasons tops left in him. I honestly think he could retire after this year. So,
Yeah. Also, what is it when it comes to
and
the
I think Patrick
Patriots?
Mahomes might need Andy Reid.
Well, also the funnest part, or the most fun part of the Patriots dynasty, was that 10-year window where they didn't get to a Super Bowl, and everybody just took a sigh of relief and was like, it's over. And then the
They got
second
to
part of
Super
it
Bowls.
started.
They just
Oh,
didn't
yeah, but they
win.
lost them, right? Yeah.
That's fine, but they
So,
still got there. In Brady's career, he almost finished his career. I think he's 1 year shy of finishing 500 of
in Super Bowl.
going to
Or,
Super Bowls, which is it's just stupid. It's just
well,
silly.
honestly, I mean, Patrick Mahomes is right there. I
I
think
know.
he's been
I
in the
know.
AFC Championship game
Patrick
every.
Mahomes can do this. And I think if Andy Reid stuck around for another decade, he could reach Tom Brady's record.
Also, another stat I'm going to put up on the board that will, or on the screen right here, that will back up what Casino is saying, where there is a slim chance.
Mhm.
And that slim chance is, I thought this was an interesting stat. The game takes
There it
place
is.
on Saturday
There it is. There's my win.
at 4:30 East Coast time. So when the Chiefs have played a game that starts at either 4:25 to 4:30 on East Coast time for the playoffs, they are 0-2. Every other time slot they are 8-0. So I mean, if me of all people, us of all people, if the Texans upset the Chiefs, and then all of a sudden, you have an AFC championship where it's either Texans, Bills, Ravens are going to the Super Bowl, I think there will be parades in the street. There will be
Oh, yeah.
parades in the street. I
Oh, yeah.
mean,
100%. I will make a parade around my block with my kids.
because nobody wants to see the Chiefs unless you're a Chiefs fan, or unless you're one of those weirdos that just wants to witness history, quote unquote, as if it means anything.
No.
But let's dive into the numbers, Casino. So
Yeah.
as you just mentioned,
I just talked to my diehard Chiefs friend fan. He's been diehard his whole life, but I told him, I'm like, just lose this year and then win 2 again and then lose again. Like, that's totally fine by me. Totally fine. I don't want the 3-peat. Fuck it.
no, I want that 10-year period where they lose every Super Bowl or they don't get to it. And then everybody's like, is the Chiefs dynasty over? And then they never get the second part where they instead win 3. I want Mahomes to be stuck at 3 and then never win it. Or maybe he goes the LeBron route, which is LeBron's chasing Jordan. LeBron wins 4. And then it's just like, he'll never get 5 or 6. He'll never, and that's just where we are with Mahomes. He just will just be like, maybe he's not better than Montana. He can never get 4. That would be fantastic. But diving into the numbers, as you
And
mentioned,
and you know
Casino.
what? You know what's really funny? We always talk about, sorry, real quick. Jordan always having 7. Jordan has 7. Guess what?
No, Jordan has 6.
6. Okay. Well, you want to know who has 11?
Well, that's Bill Russell, but it's a different
Thank
time. It
No,
doesn't
it
it
doesn't
doesn't
matter.
matter.
No, it does
The
matter.
same reason we don't count the Eagles having like 3 championships in the 60s. It's a different game.
No, they
Different
had a
time.
size they had a size an extra special ring for Bill Russell because he couldn't fit any more on his hands.
Yeah. Let's go to the last meeting between, as you just said, the Chiefs and Texans. The Chiefs won 27-19 on December 21st of last year. But the numbers, again, we briefly talked about this on last show. The numbers between these two teams is shockingly similar, considering that the Texans finished the season 10-7 and the Chiefs finished 15-2. The offense for both these teams, 16th for the Chiefs, 22nd for the Texans, 6th in the league in total defense for the Texans, 9th in the league for the Chiefs. Passing and rushing, we did that where they're both similar but flipped. So Chiefs are a better passing team, Texans a better running team. But then when you really dive into these two teams, I think the thing that really sticks out is when you've talked about the Chiefs this season, when we've talked about the Chiefs this season, it's been a tale of like, what's wrong with the Chiefs O-line? Right? Like Patrick Mahomes has
Mhm.
been getting hit. He's been getting sacked more than he has any year in his career. But when you look at it, the sacks allowed this year have been 41 for the Chiefs. For the Texans, it's 54. So we think Mahomes has been getting hit and, roughed up all season, but CJ Stroud has been getting roughed up and hit almost twice as much this entire season as Patrick Mahomes. And I really think that's why this game is just going to be an ugly defensive slugfest where both these quarterbacks are just getting absolutely rocked.
All right, fair. Go Texans.
And then when you look at the touchdowns to interceptions, Mahomes has 6 more than Stroud, and then Stroud has 1 more interception than Mahomes. Their yards and completion percentage basically the same. So it's also crazy that we were like, sophomore slump for Stroud. He's had a rough year. He's been bad. And then you look at Patrick Mahomes, and it's like the exact same numbers. And again, you could also say, oh, well,
Well,
neither
this is
have
Patrick
weapons.
Mahomes' worst year that he's ever had.
Yeah, and I don't think it's even a question. And again, they're still 15-2 because God hates all of us and life isn't fair. But yeah, the final bullet on this one is the game takes place in Kansas City on Saturday in the Texans time slot. They just love putting the Texans in the first Saturday. What is it? Playoff game, and Chiefs might win this, or Chiefs might lose this, but they'll probably win it. So you're picking the Texans in an
Oh yeah,
upset.
I'm picking the Texans. Just wait till it happens.
And I'm obviously picking the Chiefs. But let's move on to the next game, Casino. After that Saturday game, we move on to the next Saturday game, which is why is my thing not loading?
Why is my phone all of a sudden just like going off? Both crazy things. It's the Commanders Lions.
So the Commanders Lions, thank you. The Commanders
Yeah.
Lions is Saturday night. The Commanders finished 12-5. The Detroit Lions finished 15-2. Also, I'll tell you what, I said that people were making the case, did Jaden Daniels have the best rookie season for a quarterback ever and all this kind of stuff, blah, 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 blah. I said that he didn't even have the best one in his in his own franchise with the Commanders. I don't know. Looking at these numbers, looking at that record, Jaden Daniels finishes the season with a 69% completion percentage.
Nice.
Almost 3,600 yards, about 30 yards away from it, 25 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. He also rushed for 9 yards short of 900 yards and 6 rushing touchdowns. That I think you can honestly make the case he had the best rookie season for a quarterback ever. I think I was
He's
too
had
crass.
you were. He's
Yeah.
had an amazing season.
Yeah, I still think Brock Bowers should win because, again, Jaden Daniels had a great rookie quarterback season. Brock Bowers had one of the best tight end seasons ever in the history of the NFL. But again, it's a quarterback award. We can stop pretending it isn't. But now let's look at this game. The last time these two teams have met was in 2022. So completely different teams for both of them. So we can't even count that because the other three matchups this playoff season have all met this season. So at least we have something to go off of. But with the with the Commanders Lions, it's a completely different ball game. The Honestly, when you look at these two teams on paper, the offenses are damn near identical. It really comes down to defense, and Commanders finished as a top 15 defense. Lions finished as the 20th ranked defense. How do you see this one playing out, Casino?
It's really going to come down to, in my opinion, the rush game of the Lions, especially with Montgomery looking like he's going to be back for this game. He's been getting some practices in that. Even without him, Jamar Gibbs going up against this Washington running defense, that's where I think the key factor is here. So I think that Washington is going to have a hard time stopping Gibbs. I think the Lions O line is going to be able to make enough pockets for him. And then on the flip side of that, I know Jaden Daniels has been good and great for this season, honestly, for a rookie. Um, and with Detroit getting some of their players back on defense, I think they're going to see a whole different light of pressure coming at them. So we're going to have to see how Daniels handles that.
Yeah, I think when you look at this game, it really comes down to, again, much like the Texans, the Commanders have allowed 50 sacks this season, and again, you have the added factor of Jaden Daniels is a much more mobile quarterback than CJ Stroud is, and him being 100 yards short of 1,000 yards on the season proves that.
Yeah, we're just gonna have to see what he's gonna be on the scramble, I think, fairly often, and we're gonna have to see how he handles um, moving outside the pocket and getting some throws in. So this is gonna be tough for Jaden, but I'll just jump to it. I'm gonna pick the Lions on this one at home. I know this has got a really good potential to be an upset. I think all the teams left are all really good teams, except for the Texans, but I'm still picking them. Um, and wouldn't shock me if Washington came in and took care of the Lions. But I think the Lions being at home, I think Goff is just too high a caliber than Jaden Daniels, and we'll see how this plays out. But I do think Goff and Jamar Gibbs puts up some numbers against this Washington team.
Yeah, I think this is going to be eerily similar to the Bills Lions game, but the Lions are going to be the Bills in that scenario where it's just going to be kind of a shootout where the Lions honestly just out talent, out muscle, outperform the Commanders. I said when we were recording the TikTok, also RIP TikTok, probably going to be gone by Monday. So follow us till then. But I do think what I said to theirs makes the most sense for me when looking at all the numbers and stuff for this game. The Lions are a great team, the Commanders are a great story. So I just think that when it comes to the great team, always beats the great story, especially when, it's not the fluky things we've seen in the playoffs where it's like the Giants beating the Bills with Hostetler or Foles beating your Patriots. It's like those things happen in very minute situations. And then it's just, yeah, I just think the Lions again, all season have been stewing on the fact that this is basically where their season ended last year. Now, obviously, it was in the NFC Championship, but yeah, like this has been the moment they've been waiting for the playoffs to start. This is what they've been building for. They've had a week off. They got the number one seed. They've had all this time to stew on it. I just think Ben Johnson's getting most head coaching interviews, opportunities. His name's linked to it because he's a great offensive coordinator. So now you're giving him extra time to go against a Commanders team that, again, their defense has improved. It's still not an elite defense. They're middle of the road, which is, again, what I say is the threshold for them to be a Super Bowl team. But much like I said for months, and then I kind of reneged on it, Casino, is I couldn't see Sam Darnold holding up the Super Bowl trophy. I can't see the Commanders, Jaden Daniels this year holding up the Super Bowl trophy, especially after they go through the Lions and then they have to go through the Eagles and then they have to go through probably the Chiefs. So I don't know. I just can't make the case why this Commanders team wins. I think in a shootout, it's Lions. In a close game that's like a defensive battle, I still think it's the Lions
You know
because
what's crazy? And see, I would differ there. If it's a close game, I would pick Washington. I would pick with they have. I was listening to the call on again driving around today, and apparently J Max said that it's seven games this year. They have won by within the last, I think they said last 6 seconds of the game.
yeah.
Whether it's a stop on like a 2 point conversion try, they've had the field goals, they had the Hail Mary. So that's insane to me that they have won the game, whether it's via stop, a touchdown, a field goal, whatever it may be, with 6 seconds left in the game, and they've won. Like that's crazy. That's really insane numbers to think about. So if it's a close game, I'm gonna be like, okay, Washington can get this done. Look what they just did against Tampa too. Just last second field goal.
Yeah. I think my only pushback on that would be we've seen in the history of the NFL so many teams like that where it's like, oh, they're the cardiac fill in the blank and they always win on the last second and all that stuff. Those teams never do that in the playoffs. Those
Well,
teams
they've already done it once
always
in the playoffs.
yeah, but that wasn't like a come from behind
Right.
victory that
So
they
if they
stole
if
in the
if
last minute.
they if they do it, well, kind of. It
Yeah,
was.
but
They
I
were
wouldn't say they
they
stole. I'm saying that game was tied
they
and
forced a
basically
they forced a fumble to tie it, and then they went down and won.
no, but the Buccaneers, what is it? If they go for it on fourth down right there instead of kick the field goal, they most likely win that game. Again, I don't think this is like a everybody was counting the Commanders out. This was the game last week where it was like Commanders Bucks and it was like people were like 50-50 on it. This isn't, you know, I don't
That's
know. I
fair. No,
just
that's fair. I'm still picking the Lions, but
yeah.
if it was close, I'm definitely going to be watching that game. Not just because it's a close game, but I would be fearful for the Lions if it's within a score and Jaden Daniels has the ball within 4 minutes.
That, you know what, that I actually agree with. If it is a shootout, I think the Lions win that matchup 100 times out of 100. I think if it is a close game, like we saw the Buccaneers game, I don't think I would worry the Lions would lose, but I'd be more worried that the Commanders would like squeak one out more than the Lions would. Does that make sense?
Yes, but I mean, with now countering that, just as I think about it, the coaching staff and the coaching caliber and game management of the Lions probably won't get them in that situation, though.
Well, but also you could see I could see a scenario where we're talking on next week's podcast or I'm talking on the Sunday show about some dumb boneheaded mistake that Dan Campbell made where they went for a fourth down when they shouldn't have and then the Commanders used that to their advantage. They stopped them, went down for the game-winning score. Like that's entirely possible from what we've seen from, you know, this Lions team. But again, also what we've seen from this Lions team is it's like, unlike the Chargers game where they turn the ball over 5 times, they get blown out. We've seen Lions games this season where the offense has turned the ball over a ridiculous amount of times and they still win. So the Lions just know how to win. And again, I think the only team that can compete with them in the NFC is the Eagles, just in terms of how they're built. We even saw with the Vikings, it was like, yeah, the Vikings are also a good team, but I
Right, but
never
you
thought they
said
were
the Eagles
built
can
to
take.
beat the
You said
Lions.
that the Eagles are better than the Lions and they could take them. So
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. The Eagles are the only team in the NFC that I legitimately feel like are built to beat the Lions. I don't think the Commanders, if you look at it, just step back and look at the picture, I don't think the Commanders are built to beat the Lions. I think the Lions are built to basically beat everybody except the Eagles because I think the Eagles play the style of football that the Lions don't want to play, which is that smash mouth, control the clock, slow your offense down, and just kind of get into a mud fight. And I
Gotcha.
don't think that's how the Commanders do it. I think
And
they're
with
much
that,
more
let's leave
explosive.
into a segue over into the next game, which is the first on Sunday. We've got Eagles versus the Rams. The Rams heading into Philly. Oh, good luck. Good luck.
Again, my whole point and with this game is, of course, nobody likes the Eagles unless you're an Eagles fan. So of course last week it was like the Packers are
Yeah,
going to
fuck the
beat the
Eagles.
Eagles, here's why, blah blah blah. This one, it's the Rams are going to beat the Eagles because the Rams are so good, and it's all this kind of stuff. We forget, much like the last game we talked, or the Texans Chiefs game, the Eagles played the Rams at the end of November, so about a month ago. When you look at the stat sheet, everything that you're saying, or not you saying, but like the general public is saying that the Rams need to do to beat the Eagles, the Rams did last game. There's nothing the Rams didn't do last game that if they had that exact same game, you would be like, oh, the Rams are blowing them out. So the last game ended 37-20. Let me read you the stats from that game. Stafford, and again, this was not in Philadelphia, this was in LA. So now you're expecting the Rams to go on the road and have a better game against a team that they played a great game against and still lost by 17 points. That's where I don't know where the disconnect is. In this game, Stafford, 24 for 36, 66% completion percentage, 243 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and 110 quarterback rating. Kyron Williams averaged 4.5 yards a carry, 72 yards on the game, a touchdown. Puka Nakua had 9 receptions, 117 yards. Cooper Kupp had 8 receptions, 60 yards. Nakua was averaging 13 yards a catch. Cooper Kupp was averaging 7.5. So you look at all those stats and you're like, Matthew Stafford had 2 touchdowns, over 100 quarterback rating. Kyron Williams averaged almost 5 yards a carry. Both the wide receivers were the leading target getters. One had a touchdown, the other one had over 100 yards. Like, they played a perfect Rams game. What they scored 20 points, which again, with outside of that Vikings game last week, that's been what the Rams have been all season. A team that puts up 21 points, and if their defense can hold another team under that, they win. So we look at the Vikings and we go, maybe they were exposed by the Lions, but you look at the Rams and you go, yeah, they played a bad or a Vikings plan that the blueprint was out to stop them. The Eagles played one of their worst games of the season last week, and they still won by 2 touchdowns. This same Rams team played one of their best games of the season and still lost by 17 points. I don't even know what the counter argument is to be like, well, this one's going to be different because now it's a harder place to play against a team that you already had a perfect game against. Like, I
Right.
don't know what the argument is.
Yeah, I don't think there's much of an argument. I think Philly just kind of wins this one in a landslide. And again, Jalen Hurts doesn't have to be perfect. He doesn't even have to throw the ball that much. Just between his legs, Saquon Barkley, go for it. I know AJ Brown and Goddard are questionable right now for this game. We'll see. Even if they are back, they might not be 100%. But with that being said, you don't have to rely on Jalen Hurts' arm because that running game between the two of them, and then you still have Smith, it's over.
Well, yeah, and then obviously the
And
big
and then and then
thing,
the Rams have to deal with that defense.
yeah, and the big thing from that game against the Rams was Saquon Barkley rushed 26 attempts for 255 yards and 2 touchdowns. So in that game against the Rams and against their defense, where we talk about, oh, the Rams D line and verse, and they're getting better and all that kind of stuff. They gave up almost 10 yards a carry to Saquon Barkley and 2 touchdowns. And then Jalen Hurts in that game had a higher QBR than Matthew Stafford and was 15 for 22, 68% completion percentage, 180 yards, 1 touchdown, 0 interceptions. So both of these teams played exactly the type of games they've been playing all season, which is you have Hurts throw less than 25 times. You give the ball to Saquon more than 20 times. With you get AJ Brown the ball, what they got him at 6 times and a touchdown over 100 yards. And then Stafford and the Rams, we just went over, they played their perfect game. So again, last time against these teams, or last time with both of these teams, neither of them really turned the ball over. I think the Rams had 1 or 2 fumbles, but none of these teams turned the ball over. None of them played bad. Or no, I'm sorry, the Rams only had 1 fumble. I believe it was that Kyron Williams fumble. So if you're telling me, and if you're legitimately trying to, step away from the Eagles hate, because I get it, the Eagles are an unlikable team. I get it. I don't care. No one likes this. We don't care is the motto for the Eagles for a reason. But if you look back and look at it objectively, and again, just take the colors and the logos off these two teams played a month ago. Both of them played exactly the type of games they both like to play. And it was, for all intensive purposes, a blowout, with the Eagles consistently putting up 10, 14, 10 in every quarter against this Rams team. So if you're saying that against a vulnerable, where the blueprint was already out, Vikings team, the Rams destroyed them, and then a Packers team that, again, everyone was picking to upset the Eagles for a modicum of reasons, then you cannot justify to me what the Rams can do in this game to beat the Eagles. Because again, if it's in a shootout, like, yeah, the Rams are probably going to win that game, but the Eagles don't play shootouts because they have the #1 defense in the league. So if it's a shootout, something has gone remarkably wrong with the other side of the ball, which is not going to happen. If for the Rams, they're going to try to play the same game they played against the Vikings, well, then that's just going to be another 300-yard Saquon day. Because if you're loading up the box and sending everybody, then our O-line, our being the Eagles, O-line is going to push your D-line around and just make gaping holes for Saquon Barkley to, again, rush for 300 yards. So I think you can make the case, if next week really is the NFC Championship game in Detroit, Lions Eagles, then you can say, oh, it's Lions in a shootout. They're going to pick the defense apart. That I will listen to. But being like, oh, it's the Rams, they're going to pick this defense apart. Like, no, they already had a good game against this defense, and they put up less than 3 touchdowns. Like, I don't, again, it's Eagles all day, and I would love to hear in the comments or whatever what the reasoning is for why the Rams will win. And if your only reasoning is, oh, they look good against the Vikings next week, I give you the 2 months before that where the Rams looked like absolute garbage and were third in their division. Like, it's, I don't know. Any other
So
thoughts on
you
this casino?
nope. So I'm picking Eagles. You picking Rams?
Yeah. No, I'm picking Eagles. Yeah, I just don't think this year they beat them by 17. Last year, to the game I went to, they beat them by 11. So it's
The only thing I honestly think that the Rams have better than the Eagles is the coach.
yeah. And but that being said, so far I believe Sirianni's 3-0 against Sean McVay every time they've played. So
Well, I mean
they
that's
might just
fair.
have their number.
They just might
Yeah.
have their number, but I mean I would take if you gave me here's McVay, here's Sirianni. Who would you have? I would
Oh
take
yeah.
McVay all day, every day.
Well, I don't think that's any question. And honestly, I think if
I,
you
I know.
put
I mean, I'm just saying that's the only thing that I think the Rams have over the Eagles is, and that's fine. You're saying that Sirianni's got his number, but okay,
Well, I
fair
also
enough. But
think
I
he
would still
just
take.
has I just think he has the better roster. I think if you put McVay on this Eagles team, we're talking about this Eagles team as if they're one of the best teams ever.
Yeah,
Like
if they had the
in like
same, if they had the same, like if this was Madden and they had the same teams, who's going to win?
yeah.
McVay.
But again, I think much like how we just talked about Commanders Lions, I just think the talent and better position by position goes to the Lions in almost every category. And you can say basically the same thing about the Eagles, right? Outside of what coach and quarterback, and even then, I think the margins are a lot
Gotcha.
closer
You said that this
than
might be a
people would
weather
admit.
game too.
Yeah. Also, that is a thing I want to bring up as well. I mentioned it on the what is it, TikToks, but I might as well mention it here as well. When you look at this game, Casino, there's a 25 to this one says 70% chance. That's not true. It's more 25 to 50%. But when you
Yeah,
look
I
at
have it
this,
here.
what's it percentage saying
Oh
on
no,
Sunday?
it's just agreeing with what you're saying. Yeah, it says mostly cloudy with snow and rain at times in the afternoon, up to 1 inch.
Yeah,
Um,
which Casino's
and
familiar with, but
eh,
also
I'll measure
when
for you guys. Don't worry.
when you look at Matthew Stafford's career, for people listening, when he plays in outdoor games that are either rainy or snowy, he has a 1-8 record, 54.6% completion percentage, 14 touchdowns, 11
Yeah.
interceptions, with a 76% passer rating.
The only thing that they have going for them on that, the weather is it's saying that it might like it's gonna start most likely right as this game's gonna end.
Oh, okay.
Um, but that's the weather, and you never know how that's gonna go. But that's what they're projecting is it's gonna start around uh right around that time. So
Well,
we'll see.
also the thing that with Stafford that everyone fails to mention is Stafford for his entire career has either played indoors in Detroit in a dome or he's played in LA with the Rams that is nice weather all year round. So, based on these stats and his career with both the Lions and the Rams, he's never really been a good outdoor quarterback because he's never really had to play outdoors even when he was playing in Georgia. It's not like Georgia gets these crazy snowstorms and stuff like that. So, but also the other thing I wanted to show you on this one, Casino, was with the record when attempting 35 plus throws. This is insane. Jalen Hurts, when he throws more, the team is actually better, which I think goes counter to a lot of what people think of Jalen Hurts. When he throws 35 times or more, they're 11-2. When Stafford does it, they're 5-10. And then the records when the defense gives up 30 plus points, Stafford is 1-7, Hurts is 5-4. So, and that's just since 2022 when both of them, obviously Hurts with the Eagles, and then since Stafford has been with the Rams. I just thought that was an interesting thing to throw in there because, again, that destroys the narrative of, oh, well, the Eagles don't want Hurts passing a lot because they're a worse team when he does. Well, by pretty much every metric, when he throws the ball a lot, they actually win more than when they do their style of play. But I just think it's a more conservative approach to play the way they do. So, enough Eagles love. Again, I would love to have somebody make the case for the Rams about why they think they're going to beat the Eagles outside of I hate the Eagles, because that's not a reason. But let's move on to the last game, to the marquee matchup of this week, if not all of them are, but this one is definitely headline, and that's why it's the last game to go on Sunday night. More like Sunday mid-afternoon, which is weird that this game isn't starting at like 5 p.m. on Sunday, West Coast time. But
Right.
we have the
Yeah,
Baltimore.
I won't be at work just yet. But I'm gonna see if I could try to go if my wife will let me go in early so I can watch the first part of this game and then start
Yeah,
at 5.
this is going to be a good one. The Baltimore Ravens travel to the Buffalo Bills to take on the Bills in a rematch from their game in September earlier this season in
September 29th
Baltimore.
at Baltimore. Yeah,
35-10.
mhm.
So, thoughts on this one, Casino? This one to me feels like the one that is the definitely the hardest to pick, despite the last game being such a blowout.
Yeah, this is gonna come down a lot, in my opinion, to we've talked about it all season, is the secondary because Josh Daniels can throw the football really well, and he could throw the
Josh Allen.
football. Thank
You
you.
said Josh Daniels.
I don't know who is that.
He sounds like a cool guy, Josh
Yeah,
Daniels, but go
Josh
on.
Allen. Yeah, Josh. Jeez, Josh Allen, because you know he can sling that football insanely. He's got the arm of a freaking cannon. So it's going to come down to Josh Allen being able to throw, and like the Ravens safety Washington, I forget his first name. He's really
Kyle
going.
Hamilton.
What? No, the
I
Washington's his last name. I don't remember his first name.
Oh, go on.
But anyway, um, we're gonna have to see how that defense, even though it's improved, how they can handle over the top. But them beating the Bills early on in Baltimore. Yes, this is now in Buffalo. Um, I'm picking the Ravens. We talked about that on the TikTok. I'm picking the Ravens, and I just think that this team is built to beat the Bills. I think this team is built to beat the Bills. I think this team is built to beat the Chiefs. This is why I picked. Did I pick? Yeah, I picked Baltimore. I picked the Ravens Lions Super Bowl. I think it was the beginning of the year. That was my pick, and the Ravens have finally figured it out. Come late in the season, that makes them scary. Um, Lamar Jackson had a really good Lamar Jackson game last week, and it was all due, in my opinion, because Derrick Henry was able to go off and he didn't have to worry about running the ball himself. So, with all of that being said, I'm going to pick Baltimore. I think that they're going to be too good for Josh Allen to run against. And that's a huge factor in this game. So I will say this, though. If the Bills are able to upset Baltimore, because Baltimore is favored by -1, if the Bills are able to beat Baltimore, that gives me all the faith in the world that the Bills can take down the Chiefs the next game. I will say if the Chiefs beat the Texans, which go Texans, if the Chiefs can beat the Texans and they go to that conference finals, I can see either one of these teams, because if the Bills beat the Ravens and go, that gives me all more of just I know that they can beat the Chiefs again in the postseason. And if Baltimore wins, that's what I thought from the get go. So
Yeah, I think the way I'm looking at these playoffs is if the Texans beat the Chiefs, I'd be shocked. If Commanders beat the Lions, I'd be shocked. If Rams beat the Eagles, I'd be shocked. And in this game, nothing would surprise me for any outcome. If you say the Ravens blow out the Bills again, I wouldn't be shocked because we already saw that early in the season. If you told me that the Bills blow out the Ravens because they're at home and then it's a switch, it wouldn't surprise me. If you told me this game was close, if you told me it was a last second field goal for either team, I feel like you can make the case for any outcome. Now, that being said, much like the Eagles Rams game, this game, there is a 23% chance it's going to be snowing during this game. But
yeah,
even if it's
because
not
it's
snowing,
supposed to snow all week up from now all the way till through Saturday. And then Sunday, it says cloudy, bundle up for the football game, is what it says. And then on Monday, it's supposed to be snowy again. So there is a chance that it is going to snow on Sunday. But even if it's not, the temperature says it's before wind chill, like just the actual temperature is supposed to be 24 degrees outside. This is going to be a nasty cold game.
yeah, and by halftime, it looks like it's going to be 15 degrees. So this is going to be, but again, when you look at the way the Ravens are built, they're a power running team. So
Oh
I
yeah.
feel like this weather isn't going to be that much of a detriment to the Ravens because they're kind of built. If this was the Lions going into Buffalo, then I would have worried that a dome team that likes to throw it through the air is playing that type of game. But for the Ravens to be as run heavy as they are, and for not only their quarterback to run heavy, but them to have maybe the best power back in NFL history in Derrick Henry, like these conditions, this type of game is kind of what both of them are built for.
Right, and but on
Like,
the flip side of that, though, we have seen Josh Allen throw the football in nasty weather, like he's playing on a sunny 78, 79-degree day down in California, where he has
that's
no
true.
issue throwing the football. He can launch that thing in bad weather, whether it's cold, whether it's windy, whether it's snowing, cold, and windy all at the same time. I've seen that firsthand with the Patriots. So there's going to be no issue with him throwing. So really, that secondary for the Baltimore Ravens that has gotten better is definitely going to have to step up and be able to stop that rocket that's going to be coming at him.
Yeah, and then when you look at the numbers of it, the Ravens finished as a top 10 defense in the league, which again is all the more impressive considering 2 months ago they were the 28th ranked defense. They've had a 2-month turnaround on defense specifically. That is really commendable, really impressive. I'm assuming that defensive coordinator for the Ravens is now going to get a bunch of looks for head coach because of, gluing that thing back together. With the Bills, I mean, a top 10 offense in every category, the 17th ranked defense, right where my threshold is for defense, right around 15, 16. So they're 17th. But again, you look at the quarterbacks in this one, Lamar Jackson, 41 touchdowns, 4 interceptions on the year is just insane.
I
Passing,
mean,
and
you
then
have the two MVPs.
yeah, and I think if especially I know it's supposed to be a regular season award, but if Lamar
Hmm?
Jackson not only blows out Buffalo once, but then beats them again
Okay,
in
honey,
Buffalo in the
go.
playoffs, how can you make the case that it's not Lamar Jackson just
Lefty.
MVP, especially from what we will see in this game? I do think this is a perfect test for both teams to then have to go to Kansas City. Because if Kansas City beats the Texans and then has to play one of these two teams, I feel like all the money, all the vibes, everything, whatever metric you want to hold up against for the Ravens or the Bills to have to go through the Ravens or the Bills to get to the Chiefs, and the Chiefs have to go through the Texans. I feel like again, whoever comes out of this is the representative for the AFC in the Super Bowl. I mean, fingers crossed that it's
Yeah, I,
not.
I I can see either one of these teams beating the Chiefs almost pretty handedly. To be honest.
But see, that's the trick. That's what we always think, and then
Yeah,
yeah. So who are you picking in this one, Casino? You picking the Ravens or the Chiefs? Or I'm
I'm
sorry,
gonna
the Ravens or the Bills?
I'm gonna go Ravens. I'm just gonna go Ravens. But if the Bills win, that just gives me even more confidence that this is the year Josh Allen can take down the Chiefs in the playoffs.
Yeah, I have literally went through and scratched this out 3 separate times. If you can see right there, my scribbles. I've scratched it out 3 times where I went Ravens, then I went Bills, then I was like, no, maybe it's Ravens again. And finally, I'm settling on Bills, and I'm only settling on the Bills for this one specific reason. I made this graphic 2 months ago, maybe 3 months ago, where I said the only 4 teams in here who could win the Super Bowl this year are in that middle Super Bowl bubble. And if this week goes how I think it will, the last 4 teams will be Chiefs, Lions, Eagles, Bills. So if I will have called that shot
You
two,
just want
three
to be
months
right. You
ago,
just want to be. I agree to that shot.
that's true. If only I would have had the Steelers out of there and the Texans instead, this might have been a perfect graphic. Perfect graphic. But I'm sticking with my Super Bowl bubble and saying it's the Bills. But again, as I said previously, any outcome for this game, I would not be shocked about. Any other outcome in the other games, like again, Texans upset, Commanders upset, Rams upset, I would legitimately be shocked. And this one, any outcome, I would not shock me. But with that being said, Casino, let's move on to not only the playoffs for NFL is happening this weekend, but then Monday we get
Monday, Monday, Monday.
Ohio State, Notre Dame. What a great week of football. Monday, 4:30 p.m. West Coast time. Ohio State, the number 6 seed, and Notre Dame, the number 3 seed, play for the first ever 12-team playoff championship in college football. You're going Notre Dame. We know that.
Oh yeah,
But do you think they can win? I know
yeah.
you
I do.
want them to win. Do you think they can?
I do think they can. I think they can for multiple reasons. I like that defense a lot, um, and they know how to score. Plus, their coaching. Again, I would take Marcus Freeman over Ryan Day any day. And yes, the Buckeyes, they lost to Michigan, and they could have beaten Oregon that first time if they didn't have that awful slide, timeout bullshit. Um, this team could be undefeated. Like they're damn near undefeated, but so were the Fighting Irish. And I just have more faith in what Notre Dame has done, especially since they are 7-0 against ranked teams this year, and then multiple of those teams being top tier teams with Georgia, with Penn State, and teams that have played well throughout their whole season. So, I, I mean, I'm going Notre Dame. Would I be shocked if the Buckeyes won? I know, no, I would not be, but yeah, Notre Dame. Make your case for the Buckeyes because I know that's who you're picking.
Yeah, I'm picking the Buckeyes. And we're also throwing this one on the pick board casino just because we have different ones and it makes it
Hmm.
fun. I'm going Ohio State. You're going Notre Dame. I just think when you look at the seasons these two teams have had, the weirdest, maybe of the entire season, the weirdest loss in college football is that week 2 loss to Notre Dame from Northern Illinois. That is such a weird game
Yeah,
and
but again,
result in
again that
retrospect.
hap- but that happened so early on in the
Well, that's why
season.
it didn't affect them. Yeah.
Yeah,
But but again, just that is such a crazy game to look back on, but there's always games like that to look back on. I really like Riley Leonard for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. I think he's a very good college quarterback, even though this season he's 19 for 19 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. Nothing crazy, but he fits what that Notre Dame team is, which is just kind of smash mouth, play good defense, control the game, and let basically run all over you. They didn't really do that against Georgia. He was the leading rusher in that game as well, but and still they blew out Georgia by almost 2 touchdowns. But
yeah,
again, I think when you look at Ohio State and just the season they've had, ever since that Michigan loss, and I know we harp on that all the time, me specifically, but since then, the tear they have been on is just blowing out Tennessee, who before the playoffs started, I thought Tennessee was the dark horse to be in the final. But blowing out Tennessee the way they did, getting revenge on Oregon the way they did, where the first game was a 1-point game, the second game they blew them out by 20 points, and then finally beating Texas the way they did last week. I just think I don't know what switch flipped with Ohio State after Michigan, but I like Will Howard. I like their defense. I think they have the better, if you want to go position by position, I think coaching is really the only thing because, both you and I aren't really big Ryan Day fans. And I think
yeah.
what that Michigan loss, if they also would have lost in the playoffs, I don't think he would still be the Ohio State quarterback. So I just think outside of coaching, I just think Ohio State has a better defense. Ohio State has a better quarterback. Ohio State has Judkins. I just think their weapons, their offense, their defense, I just think they're better in every category. And again, that Michigan one, that might be the Northern Illinois, game on their schedule where you're going to be looking back at the end of this game if they are national champions and be like, that was a weird one. And then just kind of, it's water under the bridge. But yeah, so I'm picking Ohio State to win. Casino's picking Notre Dame. Anything else left to talk about this game, Casino, or can we move on?
Nope. Just besides Notre Dame, they've got football Jesus. So let's go.
I also think Indiana after this game should get a shot at the champ. One more time, let them play again. Let them do like a money in the bank situation where Indiana comes in the fourth quarter and just tries to take out who's ever losing. But with all that being said, we are now moving on to what we tried to get to on Tuesday's show that we instead pushed back to this one because we ran out of time. And that is the only sports podcast power rankings for the divisional round casino. Here it is. And today's theme is going to the movies because I like going to the movies. As you know, it was the end of the year, so I was putting together my best movies of the year list. So I thought I would incorporate that into this list. And we start first with your number 8. And again, we're just ranking the final 8 teams
Final countdown.
in the divisional round. And to
3 seconds.
nobody's yeah, to nobody's shock, Casino's number 8 team is the Houston Texans.
Yeah, but they're gonna upset some people. They're gonna upset some people. Everybody's gonna be shocked, just like this is when this happens.
This
Oh
is why
man.
we do this on Tuesday, because if we're doing it on Thursday, you kind of already know what games we're picking and how we feel about these teams. So it's always funny to now try to justify why we
I'm
think
not,
these teams
no,
are good.
no. This is where this team is. This is where this team fits. They are the 8th best team left in the playoffs.
AKA they're the worst team left in the playoffs.
That is correct. That doesn't mean they are still the 8th best team
You
in
know what?
football this
If we
year.
want to expand it, they're the 8th best team out of 32.
Yeah,
So
that's what
top
I'm
8 out of
saying.
32, not
Yeah,
bad.
and if you're in the top 8, you have a chance against anybody. So, I'm picking. Okay, you they're there for a reason. We know why they're there. They're the most inconsistent team that's left, and that's where they're at. But you know what? When they play good, they can play good. So they're gonna play good against the Chiefs. Just
Oh
let me
Lord.
have this one.
Yeah, well, as if no shock to anyone else, my number 8 team is the Houston Texans, and my number 8th best movie of the year. Not to brag to anybody, but I go to the movies a lot. Casino knows this.
Yeah,
Uh,
I don't
on
remember the
my
last time I went to the movie.
Yeah, I go all the time. Now, I will say 2024 was a down year for me going to the movies. I did not go to the movies as much as I would like to have, and that just has to do with kids and my work schedule, this
But you still went
podcast,
over
all those kind of
500
things.
times.
But I still went a good amount of time. So this is just from the movies I have seen. The movies I have not seen that I would still like to see. Oh, if I can pull up that list right here. I made a top 8 list. The movies I have not seen that will maybe make this list are The Substance, Conclave, Nosferatu, His Three Daughters, Sing Sing, Honora, Rebel Ridge, Small Things Like These, The Brutalist. Those are the movies I'm going to try to
None of
watch
those are
by the
Marvel
end.
movies, so people don't care.
Yeah. I'll also I don't think a Marvel movie is on this list. I liked Wolverine and Deadpool. It probably would have been like 9, but we're only doing top 8.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Um
That was funny.
so, but my number 8, and this is the way it's going to work. I'm just going to talk about the movies. Casino's going to talk about the teams because our lists are basically identical. But the movie Furiosa Mad Max Saga is my number 8 pick for my favorite movie of the year. I thought it was I thought it had one really great sequence that reminded me of Fury Road, which is when Anna Taylor Joy's Furiosa is riding the what is it, semi, and they're being attacked by like scavengers, and there's pirates out of the sky, and there's little people like shooting cannons and stuff like that. That scene was amazing and held up to basically everything in the first Mad Max Fury Road. I thought this one was also much more story driven than obviously the first one, which was just one giant chase. So I didn't like this one as much as Mad Max Fury Road, but that's because I think Mad Max Fury Road is like a perfect movie. This movie was a sequel to a perfect movie, which it was still good. It was just not on the same level. And again, I miss Tom Hardy in this. And I also think Anna Taylor Joy was good, but I don't think she brought the same intensity and like kind of like mystery that Charlize Theron did. So, great ending though. Great ending, really messed up. I like those kind of endings where you're like, dear God. But next up, Casino, your number 7 is the Washington Commanders. Why do you think they're the number 7 best team in this playoffs?
Because they still have a rookie quarterback. He might be MVP or rookie of the year, but
He will be. Yeah.
he's still a rookie. He's still a rookie, and this team has been on the fringe of losing, like I said, 7 different games they've won in the last 6 seconds, so they couldn't easily have not have made the playoffs. But good teams find ways to win. That's why they're sitting here in the top 8, and they're sitting number 7 for me, because I do think if you put them head with the Texans, the Texans could hurt, or Washington could beat them, but the Texans could beat them, just like the Texans could beat any one of these teams. Just saying. Um, but yeah, Washington's going to sit there mainly because they have a rookie quarterback and they've squeaked out some games right at the end of the season, or right at the end of every game.
I think we have two differences on this list, and this is one of them. I actually put the Rams as my number 7 team, and my number 7 favorite movie of the year is The Killer on
Never heard of it.
Netflix. It's on Netflix, directed by David Fincher, starring Michael Fassbender. This is, of all the movies I've seen this year, this has the best act one, the
This is
best.
number 7.
Yes, the best first 20 minutes of a movie you're going to see all year, which is Michael Fassbender's character is a hired assassin, and he is across the street from his target, and it's like him setting it up and going through the process, and you get to learn about like why he's doing this, why he thinks about this, why he is a killer, like his whole mental process to get into the mindset of what it takes to be, a hired assassin. And then all of a sudden he goes for the kill, shit goes crazy, and then the rest of the movie is him dealing with what just happened that went wrong and why it went wrong, and it's fantastic. Now, my only problem with this movie is the first 20 minutes are such a high that none of the rest of the movie lives up to how great that opening is. But again, I still love it. Michael Fassbender is one of my favorite actors. So when he's in stuff, I love it. And he's perfect in this movie. Obviously, Fincher directing it. Now, when it comes to the Rams, uh again, I made the case when we were talking Eagles Rams, where it's just this team is good. I think they're being tricked into people thinking they're great based on one game against a Vikings team we already saw get exposed by the Lions, and then the Rams came out and played that exact same game. The Lions didn't have the exact same success against a Vikings team where the blueprint was out on them. So the Rams, again, good team, I think, is being paraded around as a great team because people want to root against the Eagles, which again, I all the Eagles hate I get because I carry that same amount of hate for the Chiefs. So I get it. I have no, again, 2025, let's embrace the year of the hater. People should hate things and people should love things. And I hate the Chiefs, and I get 100% why people hate the Eagles. I just don't care. No one
It's their
likes them.
fans, and it's because of you. It's that reason right there.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. And you, Casino, your number 6 was the Rams.
With the flip flop.
Yeah. Why are the Rams number 6 on your list?
A lot has to do with coaching. I like Sean McVay a lot, a lot, a lot. And then you also have Matthew Stafford, and that duo has already won a Super Bowl, and they've got
That
some
is a
really
good point.
good, yeah, they've got some really good players on that team, and they know how to win. Um, are the other teams that are in front of them just stacked beyond reason? So that's why they're in front of the other two, and they're going to sit where they are, because I don't think they have a legitimate shot of winning the Super Bowl by any means, especially with who's in front of them. But they are a great team. They have Sean McVay. They have a Super Bowl coach. They have a Super Bowl winning quarterback, and they've done it together. So who's to say that they can't do it again? I am, because those teams in front of them are too damn good.
And this is one of our flip flops because I have the Commanders at number 6 with another Netflix original movie. Netflix killed it this year with their original movies. And this is Hitman, starring Glenn Powell as a operative who is like a numbers guy, and this is like an action comedy. It's really good. It is about Glenn Powell is like a in the van kind of guy who helps people basically in his unit help with the arrest of people trying to have their significant other killed, other people killed. Basically, there I'm trying to not spoil this too much, but he works for an agency where people call and hire a hitman, and then his government official, his cop, his whatever, somebody working with law enforcement goes in pretending to be a hitman. The person then hands them over the money. That means they're serious about it. And then they get arrested, all that kind of stuff. So Glenn Powell's character gets sucked into this where now he is pretending to be the hitman when they need him as a last minute replacement. He goes in, he's great at it, so then he keeps doing that, getting more confident in it, and then all of a sudden he meets Adrian Ajorna, I believe that's her name. He meets her. She then basically they fall in love with each other. She thinks he's actually this hitman. He's kind
I
of
don't
living
need to watch any of the movies now. Jeez, dude.
yeah. She thinks he's actually a hitman. They're like living this lie together, and then the whole thing of like she's supposed to be arrested for trying to hire a hitman. The company kind of finds out about it, specifically one guy, and it becomes this big snafu. You got to watch this one. This is the second movie on this list I probably watched the most this year. I think it's absolutely incredible, by Richard Linklater. Yeah, it's great. And for the Commanders,
I wonder if
basically,
there's going to be any movie that I've seen.
probably not. Yeah. So basically, with the Commanders, I think this, much like the Hitman movie, this is kind of the Commanders being presented as a team they're not, even though they're trying to be. So they're trying to be the Lions, but I think. Again, they have a rookie quarterback. They don't have that much firepower. Their defense, very shaky for most of the season, kind of like the Rams, where all of a sudden their defense has improved a lot over the last month and people are trying to act like this is who they've been the whole time. It hasn't been. And like Casino has said, this is a team that if one score games flip, all of a sudden they're not only missing the playoffs, they probably have a losing record. We see those teams every year where they are just unbelievably skilled, lucky, whatever you want to say, in one score games. And then
Chiefs.
those teams, never really do anything in the playoffs because, again, they're
That's why the
living
Chiefs
or
are going to lose to the
dying.
Texans.
There you go. They're living or dying by the sword so thinly every week that eventually that shit catches up to you. Next up, Casino, your number 5 on the list. Whoop. And that is
Do you
the
just want to say ours because it sounds like we're all the same the rest of the way out?
we are not.
Oh, I thought this was the two flip flops. All right. Anyway, so
No.
Baltimore Ravens. Again, it's their secondary's gotten better. I just need they got to prove it to me.
Yeah, and on that note, oh no, I do not have the Ravens here, but we will obviously talk about the Ravens more when it gets to uh my 4th pick because the Ravens are 4th. But number 5 for me is the Buffalo Bills. And again, I am picking the Bills to beat the Ravens. The only reason I can't put the Bills above the Ravens is because the Ravens already blew out the Bills. So until I see the Ravens or until I see the Bills beat the Ravens, I can't put
No,
the
that's a good
Ravens
point.
ahead of the Bills.
No, that's a good
Yeah.
point. That's a great
Uh,
point.
and my number 5 pick for movie of the year, Casino, Dune Part 2.
I haven't watched the second part yet.
You know what? I'll tell you what, was not a fan really of the first Dune. I just was like, it's fine. And then Dune Part 2, I went in with very low expectations because I wasn't crazy about the first one. And I absolutely loved it. The
Nice.
scene, I don't think there is a more cinematic shot this entire year from all the movies I've seen than the who's that guy's name? Why am I blanking on it? Timothy
Timothy
Chalamet.
Chalamet.
Yes, where he is first riding the sandworm and like he has to, to be the to be basically these people's god. He has to ride the sandworm and all this kind of stuff. And then he ends up riding like the biggest one they've ever seen, which kind of like fulfills the prophecy and all that kind of stuff. One of the best scenes in any movie this year, the way it's shot, the way it's filmed. The ending is also kind of heartbreaking and really makes you go like, oh, I really want to see what happens next. And Austin Butler, uh, also just is like this really slick assassin guy in it. Dave Bautista I also thought was great. But yeah, I can't say enough good things about Dune 2. I've seen it literally 5 times this year. I like it more every time. But yeah, and then my number 4, I'll just move right to that because that's where we left off kind of on yours, Casino, is the Baltimore Ravens and the Fall Guy, which I'll talk
I've
about in
seen
a
this one.
the Fall Guy's great.
It
But
was outstanding. It was really funny.
but for the Baltimore Ravens, again, their defense has improved, much like what I've said with the Commanders. I'm still worried when they play elite teams because, again, we've seen how that defense played for a good 3/4 of the season. But their defense came on the right time. Lamar Jackson, again, if they have to go into Buffalo and play in the snow, Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry are the perfect duo to do that. And then for the Fall Guy, Casino, my number 4th pick of the year, there are movies that are supposed to be summer blockbusters and giant hits, and the reason Hollywood blockbusters, summer blockbusters exist are for movies like The Fall Guy. You don't need to see any other things to enjoy The Fall Guy. You can have zero knowledge of the 80s TV show this movie was based on, which I did when I saw it, and still walk out of this movie not only pumped, but you're like feeling good. You're like, that was a great movie. Me and my son,
I've watched it 3 times.
yeah, I took my son to see this movie in theaters. He's 12 years old, still to this day says it's his favorite movie he's ever seen in theaters. In the movie, when it becomes the third act and Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt are doing their thing, my son jumped up in the seat in the theater and just started like clapping along to the movie itself. It's a crowd pleaser. It's great. Ryan Gosling is at the peak of his powers, and it's basically about this movie where this stunt double gets roped into like this murder mystery with the guy he's the stunt double of, where the producer of the movie is like, you know him better than anybody. Go find him and try to convince him to come back on this movie. Make sure he's not dead. Make sure he's not kidnapped. And then the movie kind of spirals out of control for them. But best needle drop in a movie, best song use in a movie this year is I Was Made for Loving You by Kiss in this song, which it's just fantastic. Great movie. Probably the best movie I've seen this year that I just keep like watching over and over. Not my favorite, but definitely the best. Next up, Casino. Your number 3 pick, uh no, I'm sorry. We did the Ravens and we swapped the Ravens and Bills. So your take on why you're putting the Bills over the Ravens.
Because he's gonna win MVP. Sadly, I wish it was Lamar Jackson. But Buffalo and Josh Allen just seem like this is the year they want it more than ever. Josh Allen is so determined this year. You just see it in his confidence and just the way he presents himself that if I was the Chiefs and they've already lost to him once, this season, but that's the story. They beat him in the regular season and then the Chiefs win in the postseason. But just something looks different about Josh Allen specifically. Yes, the team is following Josh Allen in his footsteps, but Josh Allen just looks like he is a very different guy this year. And it's this year or no year kind of situation.
Yeah, and also for what was supposed to be a down year for this Bills team, quickly turned into where I think this might be the best Bills team that Josh Allen has had since he's been the quarterback of the Bills. And I really don't understand why. They don't have the best weapons they've ever had because obviously they had years where it was Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis. Now they kind of only have Knox, the tight end, and Amari Cooper that they got halfway through the season. This is by far the best running game they've had since the Josh Allen era, which obviously
Well,
takes
I mean,
weight
definitely
off.
helping having Cook on the team.
Yeah. And then also their defense has not been the best it's ever been, but it's still good enough. So that's why, again, much like you, I think this Bills team, again, they can beat the Ravens, and we've already seen them beat the Chiefs. So this Bills team is two very winnable games away from being in the Super Bowl. My number three, honestly, I think if I did this list again, I would switch my number three movie, Civil War, with Fall Guy, because talking about the Fall Guy makes me realize how much I love it. But my number three movie is Civil War, the A24, kind of their first attempt at not like an indie darling movie, but like kind of their blockbuster. Civil War is a movie that follows war photographers going through America that is in the middle of a civil war. And what makes this movie really genius in my eyes is that California and Texas have joined together in this movie and basically are fighting all the other states, and there's all these different factions and stuff like that. So for people constantly, when it comes to movies, entertainment, video games, even sports to a lesser extent, constantly bitching about how politics and everything's political nowadays and all this kind of stuff, this movie got shit on so much for kind of putting the politics aside, even though it's called Civil War and it's a very political movie, and just saying the point of this movie is basically nobody wins in war. Like, war is pointless because everybody loses. And so for them to make the really smart move of not being like it's red versus blue multiple times during this movie, the war photographers are being shot by people, and then they team up with other people to shoot back at them, and like the conversation is like, what team are they on, whose side are they on, kind of thing. And then the people they're with are basically like, I don't know, but they're shooting at us, so we have to shoot back at them. It takes all politics and just kind of brushes it to the side in this really smart, ingenious way. And I think, again, much like where I talked about The Killer or The Fall Guy or Dune having these great sequences, the last 20 minutes of this movie is some of the most riveting stuff you're going to see, where the whole point of the movie is these photographers trying to get to the president. And the last 20 minutes is like the siege on Washington and the White House, and they're photographing it the whole time. It's
Oh, you're getting choked up.
I've ran out of Casino. Talk about your number three.
My,
I need to get
sorry,
something.
the show's coming to an end. I know, because my daughter's getting restless and my son's waking up. So perfect. Shocking again. The Eagles. Saquon Barkley's just too good. You know, he's barely missing out on the MVP. He probably should be the MVP, but it is a quarterback award. Saquon Barkley going for over 2,000 yards and being 100 yards shy of being the all-time. Sorry about that. And being over 2,000 yards and only 100 yards shy of being able to break that mark. This team is just so damn good. And you talked about it, that Lamar Jackson, or not Lamar, Jalen Hurts doesn't have to be perfect. You know, he just doesn't have to be perfect. I think the three teams that are up on that board right there, you got the Eagles, the Bills, and the Ravens. These teams have what they've been missing, and it is a running back for those teams. And because these quarterbacks have all done it on their legs as well. So finally getting it where they don't have to rely on all of their own legs is huge for these teams. And that's why I have all three of these teams very easily being able to beat the Kansas City Chiefs. You know, so that I do. I know. Okay, again, so I see that, you know, the Kansas City is not on this list so far, and they are on the other list, but it doesn't matter. But because these teams are so close to each other, I like the Eagles. Their defense is amazing, and I agree with you. I can see the Eagles beating any team coming out of the AFC. So the Eagles are great, but we'll see where that plays out. So they're going to stay right there.
Well, yeah, and that's why with my number 3, I only talked about the movie because I know we had the same number 3, which is the Eagles. So the Eagles, again, I've gave them enough praise this season, especially these playoffs. The number one best defense in the league in these playoffs, without question. Their numbers are insane. They have, if the award didn't always have to go to a quarterback, they would potentially have the MVP of the league in Saquon Barkley. Again, 100 yards away from breaking the all-time rushing record. Again, I showed earlier in this show, if you're just listening to the clip, go watch the full show or just watch the clip where we talk about the Eagles-Rams game, which is just the Hurts, they win 11. They're 11-2 when Hurts throws the ball 35 times or more in a game since 2022. So they're actually, the way they play is the way they play. Not saying they can't, have a game where they're winning in a shootout or something like that. I think about last year where it was a shootout back and forth between the Buffalo Bills and the Eagles, where everybody and their brother was picking the Bills to upset the Eagles, and the Bills were on their way to the Super Bowl, and then the Eagles kind of go in there. Hurts puts on a show and blah, blah, blah. Again, his legs are really a uh, advantage when it comes to the playoffs, especially when they're playing like an overly aggressive defense, like we saw the Rams be against the Vikings. So I like I like, if not love, the Eagles offense. I
Sorry.
absolutely love the Eagles defense. Next up, Casino. Let's just move to your number 2, and that is, or no, I'm sorry. Let's move to my number 2, which is the Detroit Lions, and my second best movie of the year is The Wild Robot.
I wanted to watch this, but it was not available on anything that I'm able to watch it on.
Yeah, I believe it is streaming on Peacock in, I think, next Wednesday, I want to say.
Then I will.
22nd.
That will definitely be on my list. I want to watch it. It was a great book,
Yes. So The Wild Robot,
which I never read
again,
because I don't read books.
well, you don't know how to read. But
That's a good callback to our group chat. That's funny.
But so The Wild Robot, obviously both Casino and I have kids. My 4-year-old loves going to the movies, so anytime there's a kids movie out in theaters, I obviously always take him to it. My 12-year-old loves going to the movies, so when he was a kid I did the same thing. So I see basically every kids movie in theaters, right? I like going to the movies, they like going to the movies, blah blah blah. There are certain kids movies, obviously
This is not a kid movie.
well, this is what Pixar became famous for, where it's like they make really great movies for kids that if you're an adult, there's deeper meanings to it. There's more emotion. You're seeing stuff more than just the cartoon characters and the bright colors and all that kind of stuff. So with The Wild Robot, we just rented this movie because I had to show my wife. My wife, when this movie ended, was uncontrollably crying for about 30 minutes. And I'm not even joking. She was just like holding our child and just like rocking him back and forth. It's a movie about parenthood. It's a movie about mothership. It's a movie about this robot that crash lands on this planet with all these animals, and she basically has to teach this little bird that like imprints on her, this little bird, how to like fly and migrate for the winter, but the bird's like the runt of the litter. And it's this really great story about like found family and like using your disadvantages that are to your advantage. And it's a great movie for kids, great message, but adults, I mean, I saw this movie again. Casino knows I cry at movies all the time. There is 50 minutes of this movie where I was just in tears. My wife, for an hour straight, was just bawling her eyes out. So, and with the Lions, Casino, they're my number 2 pick. Again, what can be said about them that hasn't been said? The only thing I worry about for the Lions and the Chiefs is, yes, they were given more time to prepare with great coordinators and their great head coaches, but we've seen in the past where teams are meeting we've seen in the past where the juggernauts are meeting teams that are kind of red hot at the moment and have the momentum going their way. There's no team in the league that has more momentum and more force behind them where they're, the snowball rolling down the hill getting bigger and bigger as it goes faster and faster than the Commanders. The Commanders are the hot team right now in the NFL, and that's my only concern for the Lions are they rested guys. Now, again, I do like that their Week 18 game meant a lot to them. Obviously, it meant the difference between the 1 seed and the 5 seed. So they've only been resting people for a week, but
Yeah.
sometimes when you see the team that's the buzzsaw hottest team at the moment and you're the team that had a week off, you can't match that intensity.
Right. And there you go. And that's why the Texans are going to beat the Chiefs. The Chiefs had 2 weeks off.
I mean, that's very true. But still, that being said, Lions, potentially the best offense in the league. Their defense, honestly, like by all metrics, are the worst defense of any team still left in the playoffs.
But they've gotten better because they've gotten some pieces back.
That's true. And they are going to have confidence for the way they played that Vikings game. So, again, if Commanders beat the Lions, I think the world will be shook. But I think the Lions have been waiting a full year to get back into the playoffs to avenge what happened last year. So, my number or your number one casino.
What happened last year where Dan Campbell's balls got too big?
Yeah, pretty much. Your number 2 team casino is the Kansas City Chiefs.
It is. And again, I think it has to do with they've had a lot of time off, and going into the playoffs, they've struggled with teams. And yes, I know they're good teams win. That's a motto I live by is good teams find ways to win. But with that being said, the Eagles, I think, can beat them. I mean, I have them above the Eagles. I have them above the Bills and the Ravens. However, I can see all 3 of those teams being able to beat this team. I have the Texans being able to beat this team. I have everybody that's left in this top 8, the 7 teams that are opposing the Chiefs. I can see beating the Chiefs.
But you know what? The Chiefs are number 1 because they won't beat them. And we'll just be like, why? How? And then they'll just win every game by 3 points, never look impressive, and then they'll just be three-peating, and no one will be shocked, but yet everybody will be shocked because you and I and everybody else has picked against them in every
but they have
team.
not played the Eagles yet.
That's true.
They lost to the Bills already.
My Super Bowl is Eagles Chiefs. I still think that happens.
No.
It's going to happen. It's going to happen.
No. Nope. It's going to be Lions, Ravens, like I called.
Well, on that note, your number 1 team casino, as I just talked about him, is the Lions. So why do you think the Lions right now are the best team in this playoffs?
Because their defense is getting some pieces back, and this team is just fearless. They are fearless. You just said it. They want to revenge for what happened last year. Dan Campbell is still being aggressive, but it also feels like they're being smart about it. They've figured out some plays to be able to be this aggressive. Mainly it's the one play where it's, you have pretty much Gibbs run right down the gut and they throw it over the top. Anyway, that being said, this team is built right. And with the coaching, I like the coaching and I like the game management from all of their coaches that I think with how much this team cares and wants to win for each other more than anything makes them dangerous. Just makes them dangerous. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. The Chiefs are going to win the whole thing.
Well, and that's why my number 1 pick, my favorite movie of the year, my best movie of the year as Casino is upset that realization that the Chiefs will win. But my number 1 team of these playoffs and who I think is going to the Super Bowl. I don't think they're three-peating because I think they lose to the Eagles in the Super Bowl. But right now, I have the Kansas City Chiefs as the number 1 team in these playoffs. Obviously, they're 15-2, probably 16-1 if they actually tried to win that Broncos game. Didn't even need to worry about it.
This is your favorite movie of the year?
The best movie I've seen all year is Luca Guadagnino's Challenges.
Zendaya trying to have a threesome.
So this movie is unbelievable. This is a movie when I first saw the trailer for it, I was like, okay. But I then watched it with my wife. I was not only on the edge of my seat throughout most of the movie, I just threw my hands up and I turned to my wife and I was like, this is a really good movie. There are certain parts and things in this movie where the premise
Is
of this
Zendaya just an
movie,
amazing actress to you?
I'm actually not a big Zendaya fan, but I actually think in this movie it's like
It's
a perfect role for her.
Zendaya.
Zendaya, whatever. I'm actually not
Well,
her.
it's
I'm not a big
AYA,
fan.
so Zendaya. Yeah.
Zendaya, whatever.
There's no
But
I, buddy.
the movie is about Zendaya, where she is like one of the best tennis players in the world, and then she has an injury that makes it so she can't play tennis anymore. So she at a
Tennis
tennis
elbow.
tournament, no, she like tears something in her leg.
Hmm.
So in the movie, she meets these two guys who are like best friends, and both of them are trying to get with Zendaya, but then they're also like weirdly attracted to each other. So then it's like the uh she becomes the main focus of their attraction to each other and their competitiveness, and the finale of the movie that's kind of weaved throughout the movie in different segments is one of the guys is like this tennis pro who kind of like let his life fall apart, and he's just like really good at tennis but kind of doesn't give a shit about it really, so he's just like doing tennis tournaments on the weekends at like country clubs and all this kind of stuff. And the other guy is like a pro tennis player that has lost his mojo and is playing this weekend tournament to kind of get his flow back and to go into one of the big tennis tournaments on like a high note and a win by just crushing all this lesser talent. So these two, and they were friends years ago where they were both trying to get with Zendaya, and they did. And then it comes back like 20 years later where they're all at this tennis tournament together, and it just becomes this like love triangle thing that is fucking incredible. And then the score, the
She can't play
music,
tennis anymore, but she sure can play them.
that's kind of, I mean, that should be the tagline of the movie. The score, the beat, the music in this movie gets you so pumped up. The way the tennis scenes are shot in this movie are shot in a way where when you saw Raging Bull and how Scorsese shot all the boxing scenes, you're like, how
Hey,
is nobody
that is my
ever.
favorite boxing movie of all time.
Yeah, so in that boxing movie where you're watching the boxing scenes, you're like, "Wow, how has nobody thought to shoot a boxing match like this where the camera's going through the ropes and all that kind of stuff?" That is how Challengers is with the tennis, where you're like, "How has nobody thought to shoot a tennis match like this?" It's engaging, it's different, it really puts you in the match. And then the three actors in this one, Zendaya, Josh O'Connor, and Mike Feist are just all phenomenal. And this is the best movie I've seen this year. Nothing came close to it. I watched it all the way back in February, and
Well,
I'm
you know what?
sorry,
I will
in July or whatever. But
I
it's
will take your word for
fantastic.
this because the last time you and I saw a movie together in theaters actually was a tennis movie.
Oh, that's true. We what was the name of that one?
I
Battle of
don't
the
know.
Sexes or something
Battle of
like
the
that.
Sexes. Yeah, it
Yeah,
was with Emma Stone and
Steve Carell,
Steve Carell. It's
which
really
also a
good.
good movie.
It was
Yeah,
about Billie Jean King. Really good, really good.
yeah.
That was outstanding. Yeah, you and I went on a date. We were in. It was really great. We were in Malibu
That's
watching.
true.
We were in Malibu watching this movie together, which was
we
phenomenal.
were uh, we were there for our friend's wedding and we had time to kill, and we're just like, let's
No,
go
we
see
didn't even
this
have time.
movie.
We didn't even have time to kill. You and I stayed extra days
Oh,
just
that's right.
because we wanted to hang out, and we went to. I mean, sadly, all of that's probably gone. To be honest, to think about it, which is sad.
Yeah.
But you and I had a great time. I don't know what my daughter's doing. We were, yeah, we went to the movies. We had the jacuzzi going. That was fun.
It was a very
We were
romantic
watching we
weekend.
were listening to the Knights game while we were in jacuzzi, which was outstanding. It was a good day. We went to Bubba Gump Shrimp Company. We sat on the beach together.
If
Uh,
we had
and
if we had our own Zendaya, we could have recreated Challengers that weekend casino, but instead it was just us.
that was great.
But
That was a
also,
great weekend.
we should do that again. And this time maybe get lucky. Who
I
knows?
think my favorite part
If
of
the
that
cards
entire
play right.
weekend my favorite part of that entire weekend, though, is when we were getting ready for the wedding, and then the 3 groomsmen and the 3 groomsmen and the groom were all just playing South Park on the Xbox while we're getting ready. We're just taking
A
turns.
fractured butthole. That was that game's great. But
Uh,
on that note, Casino, this has been the Only Sports Podcast Power Rankings, movie edition. Also, R.I.P. David Lynch, who passed away today, one of the best of all time. I love his movies. I love him. I love his voice, how he talked, how he viewed life. So R.I.P. David Lynch. But on that note, this has also been a very long, very action packed Only Sports podcast. It's insane that we just did an hour and a half talking about the same 8 teams over and over and over again.
yeah.
But that's what we do on this. So I'm Will. That's Casino over there. Anything else to add, Casino, before we get out of here?
No, I'm about to go work out.
There you
Yay.
go. Yeah. I will see you Sunday to talk about all these games. We'll see you next Tuesday and next Thursday. Hopefully we will be back in studio if we can stop getting sick. 2025, the year of the sickness, and we're not
Yeah.
down with it. All right. Adios.
Oh, wow.